Let's take a look at project setup. That is mainly creating the build file. Oftentimes, dependencies could be tricky. There are so many external libraries, and selecting versions that should be compatible with each other can be difficult at times. But there's a one-stop shop for all the dependency requirements of a Spring Boot project. That's the Spring Boot starters. All you have to do is select a few starter dependencies according to the type of the project, and the starter dependencies will take care of the rest. There's a list of all the starters available in the Spring Boot documentation, with a brief description and a link to the POM. So, if you're building a REST API or a web project, you would add the Spring Boot Starter Web dependency to your project, and if you take a look at the POM, you can see all the other dependencies that it includes. If you want to use Spring Data JPA, you would add the Spring Boot Starter Data JPA dependency. Creating the build file. You can do this in a couple of ways. The easiest is to use the Spring Initializr. Go to start.spring.io and add the Spring Boot Starter dependencies that you want, Web, JPA, and H2 for this project, and generate the project. Simple, but let's see how to do it. This is the Spring Initializr website. Here you can select the build tool you want to use. I'm using Gradle, so I'll select that. Then the programming language. Java is selected by default. And then the Spring Boot version. The latest release version at the moment is 2.1.8, and this is selected by default. You could add the project metadata here, but I'm going to keep this as it is. I can change these later. If you expand the options section here, you could set some more details. You could select a specific Java version if you want to. Java 8 is selected by default. Now, the dependencies are selected in here. Once you start typing, a list of matching dependencies will pop up down here. For example, if I want to create a REST API, I'll just type REST here and have a look at the suggestions that pop up. So, this first one says, build web including RESTful applications using Spring MVC, uses Apache Tomcat as the default embedded container. So this is exactly what I want. If I click on this or press enter, it'll be added to my project. If I want to remove it, I'll just have to click on it and it'll be removed from the project. I'll just add that back in. So I'm going to add JPA and H2 and then click on the Generate Project to download the zip file. Now let's take a look at the generated project. The folder structure is created, and there's a sample application file as well. If you look at the build file, there are some plugins applied. There's Spring Boot plugin, the Spring Dependency Management plugin, and the Java plugin. The Spring Boot plugin adds Spring-related functionality such as boot jar or boot war, basically enabling us to package the project to an executable jar or war file. Boot run allows us to run the application using Gradle without having to package it. Also, if you notice down here in the dependencies section, there are no versions mentioned for any of the dependencies. That's because when using the Spring Boot Gradle plugin, the versions are handled by the plugin. We don't need to provide it. Then here's the Spring Dependency Management plugin for Gradle. This adds some of the Maven-like dependency management capabilities to Gradle. For example, there are some exclusions declared in the POMs of some Spring dependencies, but Gradle does not work accordingly. This plugin makes Gradle honor the exclusions declared in Maven POMs. This Java plugin adds Java-related capabilities to the project such as compilation, testing, and packaging. I also want to add the Eclipse plugin here just so we can generate the necessary Eclipse configuration files in order to import this project into Eclipse. Then there's the group ID and the version. I'll change this to com.comment. The source compatibility. So this is a way to declare which version of Java your source code is compatible with. For this project, it is 1.8 because from Spring Boot version 2 upwards, the minimum supported Java version is 8. It does not support Java 7. This is the repositories section using Maven Central. You could change this to use JCenter instead, but it doesn't really matter. Now at the bottom is the dependencies section. The Spring Boot Starter Data JPA and the Spring Boot Starter Web are added as implementation dependencies. Then there is a runtime only dependency, which is H2. There's one test implementation dependency which we did not select but has been added by the Spring Initializr.